Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. Today is Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, and this episode covers all of today's Major League Baseball games. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model for win probability, hitter and pitcher projections, and I analyze weather data in order to make one side pick and one total pick on every game that's played Monday through Sunday, though there are no Sunday shows. That doesn't mean that I recommend you do the same. It's my goal in this episode is to share key information about today's games, pose a few questions to think on, and explain why the model or I like a certain play in order for you to come up with picks that you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with me or against me before investing your hard-earned money. And as I go through my plays, remember that there are no locks in gambling, so what I'll give you are loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. And as always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say it will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Down day yesterday, still up for the week, about a 9% ROI on all of the official picks. So no complaints there. Just a couple of quick updates. I tweeted out, I did some analysis yesterday in the time that it took to get the video up on how the first five plays were going, how the run lines were going. And the too long don't read version is that first five plays haven't, some of them have been okay. Some of them have actually hurt. They haven't been an improvement. I've had reasons for doing those plays, but I kind of just want to stick to what my strengths are. And it's not enough of a sample size to say that the first five plays are inherently worse, but it is enough to say fairly conclusively they are better. So there's really no need for me to do those. So I will be making full game picks. That doesn't mean I don't recommend the first five. It's just not something that the model that I build has bullpens in it. And so it's just not something that I'm personally putting out as the official pick. Obviously, if you like a first five angle, feel free to do it. It's just not my strength. And I want to stick to what I'm good at. Same thing with team totals. Team totals have now balanced out. I'll kind of mention a couple team totals every once in a while when I like a side and a total. For the most part, I'm just going to do a full game side pick and a full game total pick. You can hear that information. You can either pass. You can, if you like it, you can tail it. If you don't, you can fade it. Right? It's up to you. Again, if you disagree with kind of my logic on something, feel free to go the other direction. Like I said, I truly mean that. I'm simply here to try to provide information and help out in any way that I can. And before we get to today's slate, some reminders, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you're on yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And the only way is when you turn notifications on to ensure you don't miss any college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment if you're on YouTube. I love those and try to respond to as many as I can. I mentioned that college football content. Cousin Garrett unable to be with us this morning, but we've talked about some college football preview episodes. And there's some other people are starting to drop those. We've got some ideas. Probably going to record a couple for the All-Star break since there's no baseball action for those 3 days and drop those then. So if you like the college football, he'll post some thoughts and some of what he's researched as well. I love college football. It's one of my favorite sports. It's Cousin Jared's strong point probably. And so we'll have a couple college football episodes there to keep the action going during the All-Star break. And the last thing I want to say just about yesterday, and I replied back in the comments and tweeted with a couple people about this. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to get better. A couple things yesterday I just kind of realized as it was happening, maybe some bad process. And so I want to make sure sometimes it's just bad luck that you lose. Sometimes it's good process, bad results. Kind of just some things on me. A pick on the White Sox yesterday was kind of foolish. I outlined exactly why. Giolito had been struggling and Stripling might be solid. And that doesn't mean I shouldn't have trusted the model, but I should have dropped that from an A to a B pick, And so I see something like that. I'm like, hey, I just want to acknowledge like that's on me. I laid it out there, and I've got to learn and get better at letting the grades reflect my true thought processes on that one. Talked about the first five. I think I had 4 first 5 plays yesterday. 3 of them went the same way in the first 5 as the full game. The other one, I had first 5, it lost first 5, would have won full game. So hopefully now as we're going to full games, we'll avoid some of those frustrating situations. Of course, today, now that I do that, of these totals, right, there's going to be 4 of them that the full game loses and the first 5 would have won, but that's just kind of the breaks. At least we'll be consistent in our process there. So like I said, kind of a little bit of a frustrating day yesterday, but a day where I feel personally I learned some things, and that's what it's all about. I want y'all to learn from me. I want to learn from y'all or from whoever I can learn from. I think as all as we're learning and getting better, I'm always constantly trying to tweak the model, improve it, figure out new features to add, things like that. The more we can all learn, the better we'll be as a betting community. So it's one that no day is truly wasted, because even the bad days are something to learn from. So again, thankfully still up on the week, and hopefully we can get back to those winning ways today. A lot of things I like today, 10 games, many of them in the day games here. Start off with the Rockies at the Marlins, a 12:10 Eastern first pitch. That'll be a 10 a.m. pitch if you're watching this as a Rockies fan back home in Denver. A lot of these 9 a.m. Pacific games if you're out on the West Coast. Hopefully you have time to listen. Hopefully you have time to listen before those games kick off. Kyle Freeland versus Braxton Garrett. Two pitchers who Freeland is a pitcher I think is probably pretty league average. The rating that I give him in the sheet today is a 105. 100 is league average with a standard deviation of 15. So about a third of a standard deviation below average. That's pretty rounding error. And his numbers are pretty consistent. He has a 4.5 ERA. Advanced metrics line up right with that. The projection's about a tenth of a run higher than that. He's a solid pitcher, not great, just okay. Garrett in his 13 innings, a high 4 ERA. Advanced metrics line up right with that. Projection may be a little bit better. On a per inning basis, these guys project about the same, just barely above league average. Garrett's rating gets a drop down because of the length. You obviously trust Freeland to go a lot deeper in the game than Garrett. These two pitchers are pretty similar. Model says the Marlins should be a minus 144 favorite. I will take a flyer on the Rockies. The number that I locked in appears to be plus 142. It's tough to say there's really a lot of value on either side at the way this is priced. I mean, I think the Marlins win this game. But I think at the plus odds, the Rockies may be worth a chance. If this can get up higher, maybe in the plus 145s, at least into the upper plus 140s, that's where this becomes a B grade pick on the Rockies for me. I don't think it could ever really get to an A pick unless it got up to something that's never going to happen. But if you're getting up towards plus 150 at that point, I think it's worth that second unit just because the payout is so good for a game that, again, I lean Marlins. I think the Marlins are the better team. I like their offense. More than I like the Rockies' offense. I like their bullpen a lot more than the Rockies' bullpen. They're at home. So, I mean, they are more likely to win, but it's all about the price. I think at the current prices, I'll take a flyer on the Rockies at plus 142. Just a lean, though. Again, there's not a lot of value right now. Who knows what that number will do? Who knows what that number will do by the time I can get this uploaded? And the total is 8. I'll go over this total of 8. I mentioned it yesterday and kind of mentioned it a little bit the day before. There just seem to be a lot more runs than usual in this park. I don't know what's going on there. A couple of these parks, they have changed the dimensions on. I know of 2. Maybe there's more. I just missed it. But there's just more runs in this park than usual. I think 8's a little low. It is juiced pretty heavily. It's why it's only a B pick. If you could get this, in the minus 105 range, that's probably an A grade. If you go over 7.5, it's an A grade. Yesterday's game went over even before the Rockies got some garbage runs. These two pitchers here, I mean, Pablo Lopez is fantastic. I mentioned that yesterday. The Rockies were able to get up early, but couldn't get anything else off of him. No pitcher anywhere near that good as touching this game. 8's just too low. I think it should be 8.5, maybe even 9. Maybe 9. It would obviously be juiced to the under at that point. Problem is, over 8 at minus 125 is fairly close to 8.5 anyway. So there's a little bit of value, just not a ton at this number. Again, depending on how it moves, affects how I would view this later. I locked in over 8 at minus 125. I think there's solid value on the over. Both pitchers are below average. I think there should be some runs. There have been plenty of runs in this series. I don't see why that really stops today, but not quite enough value to get to an A grade, in my opinion. 12:20 Eastern first pitch, Giants at the Braves. Giants bullpen last night blowing a game. Carlos Rodon has to be a little bit frustrated at that one. I thought that one was in the bag for us there with the Giants B pick at plus odds. Couldn't quite get to the window with it as the Braves walked it off for 3 runs in the 9th. Today, y'all, it's one of the hottest games of the year right here. Starting off first pitch, 92 degrees. We're going to close. It should be about 97 degrees, and the winds will be blowing out to center field above 10 miles an hour, up towards 15 miles an hour, with gusts up towards 20 miles an hour is the projection. I mean, the ball is going to fly weather. Now, I did look at the fly ball rates for Alex Wood and Kyle Wright. Neither one of them are extreme fly ball pitchers. That's kind of their one saving grace. They're going to have to keep the ball on the ground. I mentioned that yesterday. Rodon and Morton both did a very good job of keeping the ball on the ground for the most part and keeping runs at bay. I just don't think that's going to happen here today. I have an A-grade pick on the over. 9 is a gift, in my opinion. This total should probably be 10. I'd still go over 9.5. But at 9.5, it drops to a B grade just because that push protection on 9. But like I said, this weather is – I mean, the ball is going to fly out today with that wind blowing out and the heat. I mean, if any fly ball, you're going to have to hold your breath. I mean, pop flies, it's going to feel like holding your breath. You know, pop flies in Fenway, right? A righty hits a pop fly, pulls it, and you're like, oh, my gosh, is that going to be a home run? That's going to feel like every fly ball today. 9 is way too low. Y'all know I did tons of unders. I love me my unders early on in the season, but now the weather has flipped. It's time to start playing more overs. I've been doing that more lately. I really love this over 9 here. I like both these pitchers. I like Alex Wood and Kyle Wright. Y'all know y'all heard me talk about these guys a lot if you've been listening in the last month or two. I love both these pitchers, but this is just massive hitting weather. Over 9, A-grade pick for me on that total. I project Wood about a full run better than his ERA. So take note of that. There's a reason why these two guys in the sheet, their grades are pretty similar. Now, I love Kyle Wright. He's been fantastic. His advanced metrics are fantastic. His projection gets better every time out. I feel like a broken record with him. I love this kid. Alex Wood, though, I think is better than that 4.30 ERA. His advanced metrics say it should be in the low 3s. So I don't think there's a huge starting pitcher edge for the Braves here. There is a huge edge in the bullpens, though. You saw it last night. I always talk about I love this Braves bullpen, and this Giants bullpen is just very average after being so good last year. Braves offense, not quite as good as we thought it might be, not as good as it finished last year, but still above average. I think the Braves are the side to be on here. The model says it should be Braves minus 150. I will lock in the Braves minus 149 with a B grade, and this is as high as I want to go for a B pick. If you can drop down further on the minus 140s, I like that better. But if you're looking at a pick that crosses into that low minus 150, it drops a full letter grade down to a C pick because the price is just too high. I think the Braves decide to be on. Like I said, I love Kyle Wright, but I don't think he's going to outmatch Alex Wood a ton today. I think the biggest edge the Braves have is being home, better offense, better bullpen. And so for that reason, or for those reasons, I like the Braves at the 149 price. Just a B grade pick for me though, because you are paying a little bit there. It's starting to lose its value here at this number. If it drops into the minus 130s for some reason, now that turns into an A-grade pick because I think you got a lot more value. But right now, a little bit of value here on the Braves, B pick for me, and a lot of value, in my opinion, on the over. This total at 9 makes no sense. As much as I love these starting pitchers, this is not, the Garrett Cole, Shane McClanahan type, or even Carlos Rodon. I think Carlos Rodon is a much better pitcher than both these guys. As good as these guys are, it's going to be really hard to keep the ball in the park today. I love that over 9 there in Atlanta. 12:35 Eastern, first pitch, Dodgers at the Reds. Got that run line A-grade winner. It's like one of only 3 I think we've had all season. The run lines have just been so bad to us. Today in Cincinnati, not as extreme as a scenario as Atlanta, but it's going to be a warm one. We're going to be in the low 80s to start, mid upper 80s to close. Wind blowing out to right field, almost 10 miles an hour all game. So not quite as friendly with the weather, but you have a massive hitter's park already in Cincinnati. So you have a hitter-friendly park on a warm day and a breeze blowing out. Another recipe for a ton of runs. The total's 9, and again, I think it's too low. I'm going with an A pick over 9 at minus 105. I know that Clayton Kershaw's involved. I know that Clayton Kershaw's good. I'm not breaking any news there. But the Reds tend to put up a couple runs, and they can give up a lot of runs. I just think there's no way this stays low scoring enough. At minimum, in this game, at minimum, it's going to be a situation where we're close to that 9-run mark and we have a shot at it. And that's always a good feeling. Doesn't mean it will go over again. There's no locks in gambling. But it's, at least in the Giants-Braves, as much hitting weather as it is, both pitchers are good enough that if it does finish at that 4-3 score that last night's game did, I'd be like, okay, we aren't going to win them all. That happens. I'd be kind of surprised if this game finished 4-3. I feel like we're going to at least get to 8 runs, be flirting with that 9th run, like worst-case scenario, reasonable worst-case scenario. Kershaw's going to have to shut out the Reds in order for this not to go over. He's very good. It's possible, right? So, I mean, if you're worried about that, maybe you take a team total with the Dodgers. And, of course, you're probably going to be looking at 5.5, maybe even 6, which is a lot tougher of an ask. With this weather and that Dodgers offense, I just think there's going to be runs aplenty everywhere you look. Again, I love Kershaw. He's fantastic. Probably not going to be able to keep up that low 2 ERA, but the advanced metrics have him in the upper twos. So it's not like it's a mirage and he's, due to really come crashing back to earth. He's pitched really well in his 7 games this year, projects really well. I mean, not much to say about Kershaw. Hunter Green, on the other hand, not as bad as that low 5 ERA, but just kind of very average. I think that projection of him right at league average is pretty fair. Obviously, a ton of upside. And a guy who's got a lot of variability, a guy who can go out and pitch really well, and a guy who can also get hit around a lot. That's pretty par for the course for young pitchers. But at this point, not one of those young guys, like a George Kirby last night that I think can really go down and dominate. Not quite there yet on his development. And, of course, he's hindered by playing in such a hitter's park. I think the Dodgers score a lot of runs off of him, but I think the Reds can score off of Kershaw. Like I said, you just need some routine fly balls in that park with a mid-80-degree day and the wind's blowing out. I think runs aplenty. I love the over 9. With regards to the side, I'll take the Reds at plus 208. The price is too high, in my opinion. The Dodgers should be a minus 192 favorite according to the model, and I think that's about right. I think this upper ones, about 2 number is right. I'd be comfortable playing the Dodgers if the number started with a 1. Or the equivalent on the run line if that's your thing. Again, usually those are tied very well, and it's very rare that you have a massively different edge on one than the other. It's usually about the same edge. So if that number was down and the number started with a 1, I'm very comfortable playing the Dodgers. I'm very comfortable playing the run line here. But as much as I like Kershaw and think he's great, and this Dodgers offense is fantastic, and obviously they have a huge bullpen edge, it's just too much on the road with this hitter's park hitting weather. There's just too much of a who knows what's going to happen type game. We've seen the Dodgers struggle at times with bad teams. That happens in baseball, right? The Yankees, I think, this year are the only team that really hasn't happened with. And I say that, and I think they might have actually lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles at one stretch. I mean, you just never know with baseball. And the point being, when you end up in a situation where just everybody's going to score runs because of the park and the weather, it's just tough to lay a huge price. Minus 230 in the Dodgers. The Dodgers probably win this game. It's just too much. And like I'm always saying, just my personal thought, just something to stew on. If you're parlaying big money lines, make sure that the money line has value in and of itself before you add it to the parlay. In my opinion, adding the Dodgers to a parlay, you're increasing your payout only a tiny bit, but you're increasing your risk more than the payout. So it's just one that I think it's either Reds at those big odds or pass. You don't have to play every game. Pass on it and say, I'd like the Dodgers, but the odds just aren't there. It's not worth it, and focus on the under and just root for runs would be my take. I just think the price is too high on the Dodgers. As much as I do still think they win, I just think there's too much who the heck knows with baseball. So I'll take a flyer on the Reds at plus 208 and hope for a big payday there on that one. Just a lean, though, not one I'm overly confident in. You can never be confident backing a rookie mediocre pitcher versus Clayton Kershaw, so just a lean on the Reds there, mainly because the value of the price. 12:35 Eastern, first pitch, Cubs at the Pirates. It'll be about 80 degrees throughout the day in Pittsburgh. A slight breeze out, only about 5 miles an hour, so a fairly neutral environment with regards to the weather. Justin Steele versus Jose Quintana. Steele's a pitcher I like. He's definitely above average. His ERA is 4.27. The advanced metrics say it should be about a half run lower. He projects right in between those two numbers. Above average pitcher, not great, but good. Jose Quintana, a 3.66 ERA. Advanced metrics say it should be a little bit higher. Projects about the same at this point. We're kind of coming to a balancing point here at the point of the season where we kind of know what we're getting with these pitchers. Both these pitchers good, not great. One's a little bit overperformed, one's a little bit underperformed, but it's rounding error really to say who's better, in my opinion. What we do know is that neither offense is good and neither bullpen is good. If the pitchers are about the same, the Pirates should have an edge just based off the fact that they're home. The model says Pirates minus 123. That's 55% win probability. It's bumping it up. Sometimes I try to look and figure out how the model came up with the number it did. It's bumping it up because the fact that the Cubs in general just have not been a profitable team. And so the model looks back the last 30 days and says, if you just blindly back this team every single game, would you be up or not? And the degree which you'd be up or down, it starts kind of tilting the output a little bit more, just kind of saying, hey, the prices are not adjusting quick enough. So it's not a big jump, just a little bit. I think that's kind of how it got to Pirates at 55%. But even if you said Pirates 53%, if you said, look, the offenses, the bullpens, the starters are all equal. Again, offense is both bad, bullpens both bad, pitchers both solid. Pirates 53%. I have no idea how the Cubs are favored in this game. It makes no sense to me. Pirates plus 103 is an A-grade pick. I don't know what else to say other than I don't know how how the Cubs are favored in this game. That doesn't mean the Cubs don't win. Again, I think the true number should be somewhere between Pirates 53% and 55%. But Pirates plus 103 means if they win 50% of the time, it's a positive expected value play. If it's between 53 and 55, it's got a lot of value. So A-grade pick from the Pirates. I mean, neither one of these teams in this situation deserves the respect that the Cubs are getting today. As good as they looked yesterday, they looked just as bad the first games of the series. The total is 8. I'll take a flyer on the under, a lean at minus 105. I think it's priced pretty well. I think 8's about right. I feel like this is a 4-3 type game, maybe a 5-3 type game. I'll lean a little bit under, but mainly that's just because these starting pitchers are the best thing that's going to happen this game, and the offenses aren't very good. You could look first 5. Again, I haven't had a ton of success with those first 5 totals. They've been very break even. The problem is it's priced in, right? So it's not like in the first 5 that they don't know the same thing that we know, that these starting pitchers are much better than the bullpen. So you're having to pay the premium for it, which is going to hurt your ROI there. So I'll take a lead with the under, but I think it's priced pretty well. My main focus on this one is the Pirates. I think at plus odds, I think even at short minus odds, if you're getting a minus 105 on the Pirates, I think that makes a ton of sense. Still an A-grade play. Once you get into the minus 110s, it drops to a B pick, depending on how the number moves throughout the day for you. 1:10 Eastern, first pitch, Guardians at the Twins. A ton of runs the other night, a ton of runs last night and tonight. And last night you didn't really have great hitting weather. It was more pitcher friendly, especially as the night went on. And that didn't stop those teams from scoring. Today you have great hitting weather. It's going to start off at 88 degrees, close in the mid-90s. Winds will be blowing across to start off, but by the end of the game, the wind's going to start shifting towards more out to left field. So it's going to get hotter, and that wind shifting a little bit more out could really help the hitters in this one. 2 pitchers who I don't think are very good, Zach Plesac and Devin Smelter. Plesac has a 4.41 ERA. The advanced metrics say it should be 4.6. The projection's right around that ballpark. I think at this point we kind of know what we've got with him. He's somewhere between okay and bad. Obviously, depending on how you feel about him there affects kind of how you feel about the side and the total. But we have enough data there to say he's just mediocre at best. Devin Smelter, a 3.50 ERA. Advanced metrics say that should be in the 5s. Not a pitcher who I expect to continue pitching as well as he's done. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think in this weather, the way the Guardians have been scoring here for the most part of late, I think the Guardians score plenty of runs on him. Again, 2 below average pitchers on a hot day. Runs happening last night when it wasn't great hitting weather. I love this over 9.5. It's minus 120, A-grade pick. I don't care. I'd go over 10 with an A-grade pick. I think this number should be 10.5. I don't see how the pitching in this game matches up with the hitting and how much the hitting is going to benefit from this weather. I know we don't see a lot of 10.5s outside of Cincinnati, Wrigley, and Coors, of course, but this is kind of the setup where you have 2 offenses that are above average. An offense last night for the Twins without Buxton was still able to put up 10 runs. 2 pitchers yesterday for the Guardians and Twins who are better than the 2 pitchers tonight. Bullpens being worn out based off of all the extra innings a couple nights ago and the fact that the starters haven't gone deep. I mean, these bullpens are in shambles. The weather is hot. These pitchers aren't good. I'm telling y'all, over 9.5. I don't love 9.5s going over as much, but this number I think is a full run short. Even at 10, I love it. It may land 10, you may push, but I think there's going to be a ton of runs here today in Minnesota. And with regards to the side, the model says the Twins should be a minus 106 favorite. The model's saying the Twins win this game 52% of the time. The price I'm seeing is Twins minus 127. That's way too steep. In my opinion, Plesac's a better pitcher than Smelter. Again, I don't really trust either one of these guys, and I know the ERAs would disagree, but just based off the advanced metrics and the projection, the Guardians have the better starting pitcher. According to the model, the Guardians have a better bullpen as well. They don't have a better offense, but I think this is kind of a coin-tossy type game. Maybe give the Twins a little bit of an edge for, of course, home field. But Guardians plus 117, that's an A-grade pick for me. I think there's going to be a ton of runs, and I'll take the team with the better pitcher in what will be a slugfest. It's about as low as I want to go on the price for an A-grade. If it starts dropping to really below minus 115, that becomes a B pick for me. Obviously, I like a little bit better odds here, but I think the Guardians are the way to go here. They've been a profitable team as of late. They're a young team. They're starting to really get things clicking, in my opinion. I think they score a ton of runs today. I think they put up something like 7. And at that point, they just got to hope the Twins don't score 8, which they might. There are no logs in gambling. And again, I think this is a coin tossy type game, but plus 117 offers way too much value to pass up. A-grade pick for me on the Guardians. A-grade pick for me on the over 9.5. I'd even take an A-grade over 10 if that's the number you're seeing. 2:10 Eastern first pitch. Cardinals at the Brewers. Could not get that under last night. Missed it by half a run. That was a frustrating loss there. Had under 8.5, and it got to 9. Today, the total's 9.5. And I'm going to go back to the under again. It is a day game there in Milwaukee, but the temperatures aren't hot. These two pitchers aren't great, but 9.5 is just a little bit too much, in my opinion, for the fact that both offenses can really kind of be lulled to sleep here. Hudson projects still to be below average. He's having a great season, so don't get me wrong there, 3.30 ERA, but the advanced metrics on the season still put him at 4.5. So that's just my take on Hudson. It's not that I think he's bad. It's just he's been lucky this season. The projection is pretty right on line with the advanced metrics. Maybe average, but I just don't think he's anywhere near as good as that 3.31 ERA is. I think that's a little bit of smoke and mirror with results. But again, facing what's now a below average offense in Milwaukee doesn't mean I don't think he'll have success. I just don't know if he will dominate. Jason Alexander, kind of a similar story. 4 games, a 2.42 ERA, but the advanced metrics say it should be in the low 4s. Neither pitcher do I really trust, but I think that both pitchers can do okay enough to keep this under 9.5. I was really expecting this total to be 9. I think that's the right number here because, again, I don't love either pitcher, but I don't really love either offense. To me, that sets up pretty well for, say, the total is 9. 9.5, to me, just shows too much respect for these offenses. So I'll take the under 9.5. It's minus 115. It's a B-grade pick. Like I said, the bottom line to me is I think this should be 9. I think we get a little bit of value here. Not a lot. And I can't make this an A pick because, like I said, I just don't fully trust either one of these pitchers. But I do think both these pitchers are okay enough to keep us under what I think is a little bit of an inflated total given these offenses. With regards to the side, the model says this is a coin toss game, which offers no value on either side. I'll take a flyer on the Cardinals. Here's my logic on this. The model hasn't liked the Cardinals at all this year. The Cardinals are one of the bottom 5 teams with regards to my profitability on a team-by-team basis. And it comes solely from the fact that the model's constantly saying to fade the Cardinals. So when I see something like that and the model doesn't say fade the Cardinals, probably says we should back them. It's probably a decent spot. Cardinals have been pretty good this year. The model hasn't come around yet. I don't know if it will or not. I don't really love the price, though, so only a C-grade pick at Cardinals minus 108. I think we're having to pay a premium for the fact that Hudson's having a good season. He has the name recognition. But again, I don't think he's that much better than Alexander. He's better for sure, but I don't think by enough that on the road the Cardinals should be this big of favorites. If this dropped down closer to even money, it'd be a B-grade pick. At 108, I just don't think there's great value in it. But I think the Cardinals are probably the side I want to be on. Again, the model constantly fades them, so if the model doesn't say fade them, I'll take the Cardinals. Only a C-grade pick for me there. Again, that B-grade pick on the under 9.5 in Milwaukee. 3:35 Eastern first pitch. Mariners at the A's. Things were at least okay on the total yesterday on this one until the 5th inning, and then the wheels fell off. This A's team, I was thinking about this yesterday. This A's team is a team that early on in the season were priced like they were going to lose 120 games. And we backed the A's several times. And it was pretty profitable because they started off playing not that bad. And then as the season moved along, we're starting to realize the A's might be a 120 loss type team. Overall, we haven't been bad on the A's because for the most part, other than that early season stretch where the prices were just insane, we haven't backed them a ton. But backing them last night, I don't want to say a foolish endeavor because Blackburn's been good, but I mean, this A's team is just not good. They will win again, but they're not a team you really want to be supporting at this point. I don't know what else to say about the A's. I mean, losing that bad with Blackburn on the hill at home is just kind of the cherry on top for how bad the A's have looked this last month. They'll try it again today with another good pitcher in Montas against the guy at Ray who we've liked to fade. Of course, at some point, I think the numbers kind of catching up on Ray. I think people are kind of realizing that he is, again, good, not great. It'll be a warm one today in Oakland, low 80s, winds blowing out to right center field at about 10 miles an hour. So it'll kind of turn what's an extreme pitcher's park into maybe a more neutral park. It is a big park, keeps the ball in play. It's got a lot of foul ground, but with warmer weather and the wind blowing out, maybe it's a little more neutral than extreme pitcher friendly like it normally is. Model says Mariners minus 128. I'll take the Mariners at minus 128 with the C grade pick. It's not one that I feel extremely confident on because I don't really love backing Ray, and I don't really love fading Montas, but you just see how bad the A's have looked lately. Their offense is atrocious. As much as I've liked fading Ray, he's had, an inning or two each game for the most part where he struggled, but I don't know how you struggle against this A's offense. So I don't see him having those type of problems. With regards to total 7, I'm going to go over 7, and I'm giving this an A-grade pick. I think that this total should be higher based on the weather. I think both these pitchers are getting just a little bit too much respect here. I think we can get to 7. That at least gets us the push. Under 7 here is just absurd. I do like Montas. I think he's good. There's really not much to say about him. Kind of what you see is what you get. But this Mariners offense, while it can be up and down, you saw last night, putting up 9 runs themselves. I don't necessarily think they get 9 off of Montas, but Montas isn't that much better than Blackburn. I think the Mariners can get some runs. And again, I look at the total of 7 and I say this total should be 7.5 and maybe even 8. We have good pitchers, not great pitchers, and you have a really bad A's bullpen. So we have that in our back pocket that unless Montas goes 8, right, we're going to get some innings from a rough A's bullpen here. It's going to stay warm throughout the day, so it's not like we have to get our runs early. If they don't come early, they can go late. Again, 7 just way too low. So I'll go over 7 on this. This is purely the number is off pick. I think what's going to happen in this game is and I could be wrong again. I'm wrong a lot, right? Like I make a lot of picks. Try to assess when I'm wrong, where I'm wrong, because I had a bad thought process, and let's adjust that thought process, or where the model's going wrong, try to fix that right. So when I'm wrong, I try to assess that. Sometimes, again, it's wrong, just the process was right, but the result was bad. Don't want to change. We try to assess that. I'm going to be wrong a lot, for sure. I want to make sure we're clear with that. But I think a lot of people are going to look at this game and say, Robbie Ray, Montas, the Mariners and A's offense suck. It's a big park, and they're going to hammer that under 7. And I just think it's fool's gold. I think it's very misleading. I think people aren't considering the fact that Ray's 4.25 ERA is not that far off from where he probably should be. Maybe it's a tiny bit inflated, but you're talking about tenths of a run at that point. You're talking about a Mariners offense that I don't think is as bad as it gets credit for. Talking about an A's bullpen that is bad. Talking about, again, a warmer day, ball's going to carry. What happens, the reason why these totals stay low a lot of times in Oakland is when guys get into the ball, it dies at the warning track because it's cold. Those night games, it's like 65 degrees there, right? It's not 80. Wind blowing out, usually the wind dies down at night and then winds, 2-3 miles an hour blowing out. Keeping up at 10 miles an hour, just that little extra bit. I just think everything lines up for an over. People are going to be on the under because they're just going to say these offenses are bad. If last night didn't go under, I don't really see how this one does. I think Kirby's probably as good, if not better than Ray is. So I think the A's at least have a chance to score a couple runs here. I see this being something like, 6-2 Mariners. I'm not going to say there's going to be 12 runs, but I think something like 6-2 Mariners makes a lot of sense. I think 7's too low. Like I said, I think this total should be 7.5. I think we could get that push at 7 worst case. So I love going over. A great pick for me there in Oakland. To the night games, the game of the night, the series of the weekend here, Astros at the Yankees. This one should be fantastic to watch. It'll be a chillier night in New York. We have warm weather across the country. Had warmer weather here now as we've had late June, but now in New York, it'll be low 70s to start, upper 60s to close. So you have a little bit of a different environment with regards to a lot of run scoring environment in some places, but it'll be a pitcher friendly environment there in New York and what's really a pitcher friendly park in the Bronx. Winds will be blowing in from center field as well, only about 5 miles an hour, so it shouldn't affect things too much, but nothing really pointing to offense there. And two pitchers that are fantastic. Framber Valdez is having another fantastic season. His advanced metrics are not that far behind his sub-3 ERA. I don't know what else to say about him other than he's having a great year. I think he's only had one really bad start. He's had a couple times where he's looked rough, but he's been able to battle through it. For the most part, he's been fantastic. Taillon, also fantastic. ERA matching Framber's. Doesn't project as well, but his underlying metrics match up exactly with Valdez. I really like both of these pitchers. I backed them in a lot of different ways. They've been profitable for us, and I don't think it's fool's gold. I think they are legit. Cooler night, legit pitchers, maybe a slight breeze blowing in. The total of 8.5 makes 0 sense to me. I'm hammering this under here with an A-grade pick. Again, no locks in gambling, but this total should be at least 8. And even at 8, I go under. Really, I think if it's 8, I think you should have to pay a huge price on the juice to go under, or I think it should be 7.5. I know these offenses are fantastic, but you look back at the Astros, they've played some games that have gone over the numbers like 7, but they haven't gone over the numbers like 8.5 and 9. Yesterday was a prime example of that. The Astros scored 4 runs in the first 4 batters yesterday, and they win that game 5-3. The Astros bullpen can be up and down, but they've gotten it done this year. The Yankees bullpen's looking pretty good. Again, I know these offenses are great, but I think both of these teams can play lower scoring games if the conditions are right and if the pitchers are right. And that's what we have tonight. I love this under 8.5. I think it's inflated because people are talking about these offenses, and they are great. But, I haven't looked at the look-ahead forecast here, but, if you got a Saturday day game or a Sunday day game and it's hot and the wind, 90 degrees and the right pitchers, heck yeah, let's go for the over. But 8.5 is way too inflated for the situation. Under 8.5 A grade for me there. And with regards to the side, the model says Yankees minus 140, and I'm constantly talking. I don't fade the Astros often. Has nothing to do with me being a fan of them. It has to do with the fact that they're a good team and the model's picked up on that, and backing them has been mostly profitable. But the Yankees, every time there's a Yankees edge, I love it. The Yankees have been our most profitable team. Model says minus 140. This price of minus 122 makes absolutely 0 sense for me. I tweeted this out when the lines hit. I have no idea what it is right now. I'm not looking right now. By the time this gets uploaded or later in the day, I have to assume this is going to be higher. As much as I like Framber Valdez and as much as his offense for the Astros is really rolling, the Yankees at home, they still have a better offense than the Astros. Taillon is not that much worse than Valdez. This number, the way the Yankees are playing right now, it just makes no sense to me. And I'm going to talk about this with the Dodgers too. The Dodgers and the Astros both. If you blind back them over the last 30 days, you'd lose money. They're good, but they're being priced a little bit too high. The Yankees, on the other hand, are not that way. The Yankees have been playing so well that just blindly backing them is profitable. That's how well they're playing. The prices have been high. So the reason I say that isn't to say blind back the Yankees. It's to say that even at the prices that we normally see with the Yankees, they are still outperforming that. Minus 122 makes 0 sense to me. I'm all over the Yankees A-grade pick. It hurts my heart as an Astros fan, but I just think there's a lot of value on the Yankees, way too much value to pass up on here. I think it should be a good game, but this really feels like a 4-2 Yankees type win, in my opinion. 18 Eastern first pitch, Orioles at the White Sox. Start off in the mid-70s in Chicago, close around 70 degrees, a slight breeze blowing in, only around 5 miles an hour. Dean Kremer versus Johnny Cueto. Both of these pitchers have ERAs in the 2s. Both of them, the advanced metrics say it should be in the upper 3s, and both of them project to be in the mid-4. So an interesting thought process with both of these pitchers. Both of them are for sure pitching. The results are better than their pitching. Both of them are very unlikely to continue with these type of results. That said, the question you have to ask yourself is, are these pitchers more close to their underlying metrics, which say that they should have ERAs in the upper 3s, or are they closer to the projection where both of these guys project to be in the mid-4s? That's, I think, the question you have to ask yourself here. The White Sox, of course, have an edge on the offense, and they have an edge in the bullpen. As good as the Orioles bullpen has looked, I still think the White Sox bullpen is better. Model says White Sox minus 169, so I'll take the White Sox at minus 151 with an A-grade pick. Thankfully, Giolito isn't on the hill. As good as he's been over the last couple of years, he's definitely lost it. Cueto, on the other hand, I think I don't know with Kremer being such a small sample size with him. I really don't know. So my question earlier, for me, the answer is I don't know if he's more of an upper 3 or a mid-4 type guy. But with Cueto, I think his projection's a little bit too high. The reason I say that is Cueto's a guy who has a lot of history behind him, but a pitcher who has been injured, and so sometimes the projection docks a little bit from that because he hasn't been pitching. He's also a guy who kind of like tends to reinvent himself every couple of years with a new pitch and a new wonky thing he does with his delivery. So I think that he's probably closer to his underlying metrics of an upper 3 ERA rather than a mid-4. And so with that said, I feel pretty comfortable backing the White Sox here. I think they have a better starting pitcher, better bullpen, better offense. They're at home. It's an A-grade pick for me. I think 151 is way too low. It's an A pick. It's about 155. At that point, once you cross into the upper 150s or into the lower 160s, I think you're starting to lose value. Having to pay a premium drops to a B-grade pick. Again, model says White Sox minus 169. If that's a little too friendly because the model just doesn't like the Orioles for some reason, I still think there's a lot of value at this number, which is why I said I'm very comfortable with this, even as a B pick into the upper 150s and minus low 160s. Once you get to about 165, though, it's a lot tougher of an ask because if there is any anti-Orioles bias in the model, you've really lost all the value if you're having to lay a price like that. I think the White Sox are the right side. Minus 151 is a gift, in my opinion. A-grade play for me. And on the total, it's 9. I think it's priced very well at 9. I think 9 is the exact number I would do. I'll take the over because the odds at plus 105. It basically, over 9 plus 105 is pretty equivalent to you're probably going to end up seeing some 8.5s throughout the day, and I'll go over 8.5. I think 9 is the right number. I don't think either starting pitcher is fantastic. The weather's just kind of like very neutral. To me, everything's just kind of run-of-the-mill June game. Total should be 9, in my opinion. I don't see – it's really hard for me to isolate anything and pick at anything and say, oh, well, it's because of this that the total should be either 9.5 or 8.5. So if I think the total should be 9, I'll take over 9 because the plus 105. And, again, it's kind of equivalent to going over 8.5, which I think is kind of the same thing. I think there's some value there. It's not what I love because I'm not sure if the Orioles score that much off of Cueto. And, again, the Orioles bullpen keeps overperforming. So I could easily see this game going under. I just think 9 is the right number. So I'll take the plus odds at plus 105 with a lean there on the over. In the last game of the night, the one late game, 9:40 Eastern, first pitch, Phillies at the Padres. Got another A-grade winner with the Padres yesterday. Got an A-grade under with the Phillies yesterday. So both these teams were good to us. It'll be a normal night in San Diego. Start off around 70 degrees, close in the mid-60s. A slight breeze blowing in or across, only 5 miles an hour. So it'll play like it's standard. Hitter-friendly park. Ranger Suarez versus Joe Musgrove. Musgrove is fantastic. Not as good as that 160 ERA, but his advanced metrics are in the upper 2s. I mean, it's not really a big mirage other than at some point he's going to give up some runs because pitchers do that. But, I mean, fantastic season. I mean, definitely eyeing in the conversation for the Cy Young. He's been outstanding. His projection continues to improve each time out. Again, some of the best underlying metrics that we've seen of the season for these guys with, 70-ish innings pitched. Ranger Suarez, on the other hand, a 4.43 ERA. Advanced metrics and projection are a little more friendly than that, but not by much. I mean, you have a very average pitcher in Suarez, as good as he was last year down the stretch, versus a fantastic pitcher in Musgrove. These offenses are probably a wash. The Padres bullpen, as shaky as it is at times, still has some talent. It's probably still better than the Phillies pen. Padres at minus 141 is way too low, in my opinion. A-grade pick. The Padres, I've got them at minus 155, and that seems about right. Padres are at home. Even without Machado, if he's not in, I think the offenses are probably about a wash. I think they're probably about a wash either way. I think without Machado, all of a sudden the Phillies offense may be a tiny bit better. Without Machado, or with Machado, and the Padres offense is a tiny bit better. But I think a lot of times people overestimate the impact of one player. it's kind of like a rounding error. You never really know how the matchups are going to work and the left-handed, right-handed stuff. And I mean, again, Machado's really good. Don't get me wrong. It's just my point being, we're going from Padres offense a little bit better to a little bit worse than the Phillies, but it's so rounding error and the variability of game to game. It's kind of a wash. The offenses are more or less pretty equivalent. Again, bullpens may be equivalent. Model gives the Padres a slight edge. Padres are at home. And then again, you just have a huge edge with Musgrove. I don't understand why this is 141. It's an A-grade pick for me. It's an A-grade pick for sure up to minus 145. The upper minus 140s to minus 150 is that A minus B plus. You're paying a little bit more of a premium, so it's a little bit tougher of an ask. But I really like this Padres team. It's kind of a tough call there. Once you get to minus 150 and a low minus 150s, I'd still back the Padres, but only with a B grade pick. As again, the price just a lot of the value's been sucked up. Total 7. I'll go under 7. It's even money. I like it. I'll go with a B grade pick. I just can't get to an A pick. An A pick for me on under 7 is a game where I'm like, this number should be 6.5. And I just can't quite say that with Suarez involved. I can't quite say that with these bullpens, just as kind of inconsistent as they can be. Again, I think both bullpens are fine. They're just not quite there. And again, Suarez just isn't quite there. Suarez is fine. I just can't quite get there. I like the under. I think there's a case to be made that this total should be 6.5. So for me, that makes under 7 a B pick, but it's not a slam dunk where I'm like, I have no idea why this isn't 6.5. That would be an A grade pick. So I think under 7 even money offers a lot of value. B grade pick for me there. I think it's the right side, but it's just can't quite get there to an A grade personally. All righty, and that is all of the games. A recap of the A picks. I'll take the over 9 at minus 110 in Giants Braves. I'll take the over 9 at minus 105 in Dodgers Reds. I'll take the Pirates at plus 103 at home against the Cubs. I'll take the Guardians at plus 117 and the over 9.5 at minus 120 in their game at the Twins. I'll take over 7 at minus 110 in Mariners A's. I'll take the Yankees at minus 122 and the under 8.5 at minus 115 at home against the Astros. I'll take the White Sox at minus 151 against the Orioles, and I'll take the Padres at minus 141 at home against the Phillies. 10 games, 10 A picks. Let's go for 7-3. I don't want to get too greedy, right? I'll say 7-3 in those A picks. A nice little profitable day for us here on this Thursday. I'm putting that into the atmosphere, getting those good vibes going for us. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder, check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link and more at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. I will probably see you tomorrow. Still no labor yet for Mrs. Professor. Never know, though. I'll update y'all on Twitter if that changes. But until then, whenever I see you again, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's Monday, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.